Hello and welcome to the Linebreak Monday podcast. Me, your host, Sav. Today we have Fred the Frenchman to talk a bit about Lions and why the refs made no wrong decisions at all the whole game.
Almost what I said.
Textbook. You've got to support your fellow countrymen, haven't you?
Yeah, that's not quite the reason I've decided to talk about this. But in a way, kind of, yeah, because I think there was two good displays of refereeing in the second and third. Well, actually, in all of the tests, I thought Piper was really good in the first one as well.
I mean, there's a lot of disgruntled Kiwis out there, but we'll start with your because Fred comes prepared, you see, to a podcast, so we've got an actual overview of what we're going through.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder why I do this sometimes. So
sometimes
yeah,
we're
the
prepared.
idea
Go on,
is
Fred,
to start with an overview of tour. So because you're more of I'm a bit of a Lions fan. It's a way I can support them without having to support England. What's your view? Was this tour a success or a failure?
I thought it was a success before we went into game 3, and coming out with a draw, I'm even more assured that it's a success, really.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree on that. There's such a New Zealand is so far, so far ahead of everyone that you think a drawn series in New Zealand, that's got to be a success for the Lions in the long term. But on the day, I thought it was a really shit ending.
It was a bit of a damp squib. It was a hell of a lot of build-up, huge amounts of money poured into this massive hype game, and a draw was probably the fair result, and it was quite interesting watching two people lift a cup and fireworks going on.
It was a fair result. It was really shit to watch both of them lift the cup. I don't know. It just felt so awkward, and you felt bad for everyone, really, given the amount of effort they've put in, and you can tell it was more of a loss for New Zealand. And that's
and Reed's wearing his cap as well.
Yeah,
but
the thing is, I think that might also be the difference in mentality between New Zealand and the home nations. Is that for them, not winning is a failure.
For sure, but I also think, I mean, when you listen to the interviews afterwards, there were still Lions players. They weren't happy. They're going to be happy looking back. Especially because in that last game, I don't think the Lions were ever in a position to win.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. I think on the day, if you're happy about the draw, then you're not a proper competitor. After that, when you look at the overall of the tour, they can be very happy with what they've done in New Zealand. But on the day, you've got to be gutted when you come up with a draw.
And obviously there were lots of little controversies throughout the whole thing, and before we move on to the do you want to talk about individual nations?
Exactly, that's what I was going to talk about. So I've heard quite a few people say that Eddie Jones should be really happy right now, because not only did he get really good results in Argentina with the under 13s, I think, and
he did,
and in the meantime his quite a few of his players impressed with the Lions, but I thought let's look at the other nations as well. So I think from an England point of view, this is a very successful summer, with Itoje and George, going another step further than they
and Daly even.
So
for sure. I think George has stepped up from a Eddie Jones standpoint. He's now got a captain who is very competent, great player and everything, but you then look at Jamie George and just go, this is a man who held that Lions shirt and held it rightly, dominated a line out very well, controlled the breakdown, made good hits, made good carries. There's nothing he's doing wrong.
Well, you can argue he had a fairly poor performances, but for his standards in the third test. But even then, you look at his performance overall on the tour. He's been brilliant, and he's really shown everyone why he was picked ahead of Hartley, I think.
Yeah, and obviously that's going to be a head scratcher. The I think if we move on to Wales, who you've got next
Yeah.
in the list to talk about, because I mean England's Daly, Watson, Noel. They've got a great back three. Brown's going to be fighting for a fullback position because I thought Watson was quite good in the air. We've now got, although he had a good tour in
I think the
Argentina,
only disappointment will be George Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz did not come out on top, to be honest, this tour. In fact, Laws outshone him in the end.
In a way, he didn't really get. He did get one chance. He was picked ahead of Laws and ahead of almost everyone bar Alan Wynne-Jones for the first test, and he didn't deliver. He wasn't shit, but he didn't deliver at the right level, and that was it for him. End of tour.
This is what surprises me, because this is why I want to talk about Wales a little bit, because I think Gatland, as I spoke about in the last podcast, even more so now that with the draw, Gatland's proven to me at the very least that he's a very, very good coach, not just an international standard coach. He is a very good coach, but more that he's picked players more adaptively this series than I've ever seen it happen before, which if he brings it back to Wales could be a better thing for them.
I think the main thing for Wales regarding selection is the fact that they've actually done what the Welsh fans were asking for 2 years now, to put Liam Williams at 15 and either drop Halfpenny or put him on the wing. So I think that's what they're going to take out of this mostly, and also that Warburton can deliver.
Not only can Warburton deliver, but Jonathan Davies is still an absolute star in that backline. He, regardless of him getting a little bit, I mean, he's not even old particularly, but he's getting older. He's still an absolute star. He's tearing it up more than ever.
I would have. I think the players picked him as the player of the series. I completely agree with this. It was either him or Sean O'Brien, and he's played 3 times 80 minutes. So to me, there's no contest. He's won the player of the series,
and he's been very good. I also think that although Rhys Webb might not have got a crazy amount of minutes on the Lions team, he was still a very good backup to Conor Murray.
He showed good quality.
There's been a good kind of showing for Wales. I do think they're still lacking in the tight five, because Ken Owens, was the only representative that everyone was really happy with. Alan Wynne-Jones is older and had a great tour, but he's not a long-term prospect. But that's the interesting thing, is that Gatland sort of did his usual thing by picking some players on name and on, rather than, I think saying on name is a bit harsh, because it means it's like he's selecting them out of on paper, when he's not. He's talking to them, so he can have a feel of how they're going to perform as well. And he's there at training. It's not like us where he only sees them play. So he's picked Alan Wynne-Jones and Faletau. Faletau was picked to go on tour because he knows him, knows how he can perform, and he was completely right on that. Faletau is 100% correct. I think
the first choice 8.
Yeah, and rightly so. I think at the beginning of the tour, everyone was picking Stander. Even myself, I was thinking it maybe not even bring Faletau on tour, because he's not done anything. He's been injured, and then he's just had a couple of games for Bath. But completely proven wrong. Gatland backed his man, and Faletau really stepped up and played really well.
Yeah, and if you remember now, Faletau being brought on for Moriarty against England was a big talking point only a few months ago.
That was massive talking about. Moriarty was having the game of his life, and they brought Faletau on, and everyone was like, they've just taken off their best defensive player, and there was a big shock. We'll quickly move on, because we've got a lot of talking points that you've laid out. The Scottish, have they got anything they can take away from this?
That's the thing. They can take away that Laidlaw is not that good. There's nothing quite wrong with him, but had Ben Youngs not been injured, not said no to tour,
aggrieved,
he would have had no I think Gareth Davies was a better choice than Laidlaw.
I think if he'd brought Gareth Davies, then Gatland would have been hung, drawn and quartered.
Then you can take I'm not a big fan of Danny Kerr, but you can take Danny Kerr as well. I think Or if you want to take a third guy who's not going to be near the Test team, you could have taken the second choice 9 of Ireland. I can't even remember his name, but he was really good. When Murray was
Marmion?
Yeah, Marmion. There we go.
Yeah. For me, Scotland can take away the Ali Price is their best 9 at the moment. If they want to win rugby games without kicking goals, if they just want to score tries, then back Finn Russell to play and play almost a New Zealand type game where your kicker doesn't matter and you just score tries. Then Finn Russell's your guy. Lead from the front, play with Ali Price, and then maybe bring on Hidalgo Klein or whatever to finish a game off, something like that.
Well, we've seen this time around that it does matter.
Yeah, we have because Barrett didn't knock his kicks, and it was an issue.
Even when you're New Zealand.
I think Seymour had a decent tour as well.
He did.
So I think that the Scott and Hogg obviously was gutted with his injury and came home, and he's been active on social media as loving the Lions and everything. So I mean, there's things that they can take away. I think Scotland are very much going to have been more focused on what happened in their own tour than what happened on the Lions tour.
Completely.
And they did very well, and they've beaten Australia, and that's all.
I think what they can take out of this is that they played a team that's closer to their best team during the June Test because they had no one in the Lions. When you'd expect a player like Finn Russell to be with the Lions, he wasn't really. He was only at the end and played 5 minutes. So it meant that Scotland had a proper first team out for their June Test, so that they can take a lot of things out of that.
I've got an issue with my audio, which I'm a little bit worried about.
I think we were cut, so I just kept talking.
We had that little break. We'll now talk about Ireland, shall we?
Yeah. So Ireland, what can they take out of this tour?
For me, they can take off that Stander is absolutely knackered. They can take out that Conor Murray is probably the best 9 in the Northern Hemisphere right now. And what else can they do? Sexton is not going to last forever. He did have a good tour, but I'm not really sure if he's the longest term solution. What's happened there? You've just gone really, really loud.
Well, I've not said anything in a while.
Yeah, your background noise, I don't know why, it really kicked up a notch.
That makes no sense. I'm not doing anything.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. No, it's fine. We'll just keep rolling. Why not?
Yeah, I think they're going to need a... Go on.
I think their front row is absolutely rock solid as well. I think that's something that Ireland are just completely solid on. They've got Tab Furlong and McGrath front row, just awesome. And best, I find a new hooker who can throw. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to need some backup at hooker because Best is still really good, but he's not going to last forever. Kind of like Sexton, I think they need to groom. At 10, they need. What's the name of the Leinster fly half? The really young guy.
Carberry is going to be coming in, and obviously they got Paddy Jackson and Scannell. I think is the hooker. So I think it's Scannell at hook, maybe Carberry and Paddy Jackson are the 2 other options.
Yeah, I think Paddy Jackson is a really good 10, but he may just be the guy to help Carberry do the transition to the starting shirt. You might be right there, to be honest with you. In fact, you're most likely right there.
There's quite an interesting thought process in Ireland that their second rows with Paul O'Connell gone, Henderson not being amazing. He was good though. He came back. Toner not being an option, and I don't know. The Irish. I feel like the Irish didn't have as much influence on this tour. It was kind of a Sexton and their front row. That they didn't have a creative influence beyond that.
And Murray.
Murray, I forgot about Murray. I mean, in fact, that's the core of Ireland right there. 9-10 and their front row. That really is their strength. Because Stander and Sean O'Brien. I mean, Sean O'Brien had a good tour, but I think maybe I'm just thinking too much about Stander because he just didn't have the tour that I expected. I might be focusing too much on that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think Stander's been playing too long and perhaps needs a rest, or do you think he just didn't quite go?
Yes, I think that's it. Before tour, he was either starting 6 or 8 for me, and it was a matter of who starts with him. So it was probably going to be Vunipola and Stander at 6. But now on the tour, he was dropping balls, not quite putting the same. Not quite providing the same go forward as he usually does, and I don't think it was a case of quality of opposition or style of play. I think he was knackered.
Yeah, it was the vibe I was getting, and I think because I had him in my head as the Irish standout player, perhaps I'm reading too much negative into the Ireland, because obviously Murray and Sexton had good, and Furlong and McGrath was solid when he came on. So overall, I mean, they were fine, but
I think that their players did well. The interesting one is Sean O'Brien, because he is often injured. He plays in a club that has 17 back row players, and he's shown that he may not be the flashiest player, but he's the guy that can turn up to the highest level.
Yeah. Oh, he really can.
The interesting bit is in a lot of clubs or. You find those players that really stand out, especially at 6 or 7, that put in massive performances and really make a name for themselves. And Sean O'Brien hasn't done that in the last 2 or 3 years, and yet you put him at the highest level, and he's your standout player.
It was a testament to him, the Liam Williams break to him scoring that try. He has had to absolutely track so hard to get in the right position where JD2 could offload the ball to him.
Yeah.
And obviously as a back row forward, that's your job. You want to do that and track your ball running backs. But that doesn't take away from the fact that is an incredibly hard skill. I don't think there were any other forwards nearby. He absolutely gone. I think Murray was the closest one to him, and the rest were just backs who had just pegged it as fast as they can to try and keep up with Watson and Liam Williams and everyone else.
Yeah, it's a funny thing when we like to check out. It's something I really like to see with amateur referees, is try to figure out if they're still in the other half of the pitch when a try is scored, and at professional level, it's not acceptable for anyone, not even front row, to be in the other half of the pitch. But I think on that try they probably all were.
No, yeah, they were knackered. I mean, that was and rightly so. I mean, they absolutely gassed it. Daly gave a little step as well and put even more pace on the ball. It was a very hard one to keep up with, and Sean O'Brien was right on their heels, and that's a testament to his skill, really. Yeah,
or just the intensity that he plays at. So I think Ireland can take that out. So he may. No one knows. The thing is, you don't know if Sean O'Brien's going to be starting or not even playing in the next Six Nations.
Just because of the injury, yeah.
Because of injuries and everything. But if he does, you're going to get a lot out of him.
So the final team that we can talk about, obviously, is New Zealand.
New Zealand. That's the most interesting one, I think. That's why I kept it last.
Yeah.
Is that they're so not used to losing or drawing or not being the best, or still being they were the best, but didn't quite get the result that they wanted. And it's going to be interesting because that could be a positive thing for the future, because they brought in those young players. Those young players did deliver in a way.
Well, I think the worrying thing for us as Northern Hemisphere fans to try and beat New Zealand is that was Geordie Barrett's debut game.
Debut start.
Yeah. Laumape, ALB, that combination I don't think has played together ever, apart from maybe for like a sub period of time. So that was at the highest level that combination was decided to be played. We've then got Barrett missed a bucket load of kicks, so he gets a couple more kicks, and then who's going to be able to touch New Zealand? That sort of style. They've proven that Sam Cane defensively is awesome, although in attack he's a little bit hit or miss. Every single game he dropped one ball. He actually knocked on every single game, I think, which is gutting. It kind of puts me in a mind that he needs to really get that out of his game, otherwise he's never going to be looked upon as being an all-time great ever, because you can't have moments like that and be a great. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah. I think there's a lot of criticism in New Zealand about selection of Sam Cane ahead of Matt Todd and a couple other players. And in those tests, I think, especially the second one where he was playing 6 and 7 at the same time, with Sonny Bill Williams off and Kano coming off for Laumapi, I think he really proved why he's so useful.
Yeah. Wow. Defensively, the man was everywhere.
And
he doesn't
and he
really
was
take a
taken
step
off
backwards.
fairly early, I think. But it's probably that when you play for two players, you've got to go off. And this is also where having a guy like Surveyor on the bench in the back row is incredibly useful, because he's so quick. For 20-25 minutes, he can do the work of two men.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think it's way back now, but he may have originally played quite a lot of sevens, if I seem to remember correctly, Ardie Surveyor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a man who I think can run almost continuously for 14 minutes. So you bring him on for the last 25 minutes of a game, and he is just going to give you 100% that whole period of time, which for an opposition is quite terrifying to try and defend against, because he's not even in what you might deem as a threatening position, which means he can pop up anywhere and suddenly just outstrip your whole team. And it's very, very worrying, obviously.
Yeah, he can provide an extra link anywhere on the pitch at any time.
Yeah, it's very hard to defend against. I think New Zealand, there's still nobody who has consistently filled that Dan Carter hole. Barrett's the best player in the world, and he is phenomenal. But if they had Dan Carter on the pitch, I think they'd have won. I don't really know how else they can say it, because he would have kicked his goals. He was well known that in a high pressure situation, a World Cup or a Test match decider, Dan Carter kicked his points. So.
Well, we're comparing. Yeah, I was going to say we're comparing different times, but not really, because Dan Carter's still playing when he's not at Wimbledon.
when he's not chilling at Wimbledon. No, we are kind of comparing different eras, but he's still playing. I'm not saying that he should still be playing for New Zealand, because obviously Hansen is looking to the future, and Barrett is very much the shining bright light of the future, and is fantastic player of the year, all of that. But there is going to be question marks over his kicking, and there have been for ages. It's nothing new. This isn't a revolutionary idea, particularly. But I don't think that's solved. I don't think that's solved New Zealand's problem this tour. Basically, I think they've still got that question mark. It still exists.
I think they do as well. Yeah.
And I don't think Cruden would solve it either. So.
No, different styles.
And people talk about Sapawanga as well, and I don't think he's. I think New Zealand basically need to get over the fact that they're probably not going to have a kicker that's as good as Dan Carter in the Test match, unless Geordie Barrett kicks. Have you watched much Super Rugby?
No, watched a lot of highlights, probably every single one.
Okay, well, when Bowden was clutching his hamstring every so often, Geordie was kicking at posts, and he was knocking most of them over. So I mean,
yeah, he was the under-20s kicker as well. Geordie's the better kicker. I think everyone agrees with that. Yeah.
So between him and Mackenzie, I mean, the future is there for New Zealand kicking. It's just how Hansen's going to adapt to it.
Yeah, I thought Geordie Barrett would kick kick goals in the third test, but I think they didn't want to put an extra amount of pressure on such a young player.
That would have been yeah, or almost too much. I mean, he's already under the pressure cooker, etc. I also thought that Hansen was very smart. I mean, we're going to talk about coaching in a little bit. I thought Hansen was very smart taking the Hurricanes core, so Lemape, the two Barrett, Sevilla, and just putting them all together in that back line and saying, look, you guys know how to play together, let's work and use that system.
Yeah.
And that I think worked very effectively. It didn't quite pay off in the end.
Multiple times around this that he is an incredible coach.
Yeah, for sure. Should we move on to other controversies? We haven't really talked about that many yet, but the concussion issue.
Yeah, my issue with this in the post-match press conference, Warburton and Gatland said that they did some HIA and passed. If you look at Warburton and Alan Wynne-Jones on the pitch, they look like they should not be playing rugby. And I think there's a gut feeling that goes with it. So you think, if you're the doctor or the medic or whatever, you've got to see those images, because they probably don't see it from the side of the pitch, and they can assess the player and he seems all right. But when you look at those images, you think this guy should. There's no way he should be playing. Either of them should have been on the pitch a second time.
100%, yeah. I saw that footage of Alan Wynne-Jones. He was completely cold. There's no way that I, having seen that footage, would put him back on the pitch. I don't care how much he wants to go back on the pitch, right? End of the day, if he comes off or if he gets another knock, he gets some sort of brain damage, he gets some sort of long-term illness just from that second head knock, it's just too much. There's too much riding on something stupid that can ruin your whole life. And it really frustrates me watching them both come back on. I really wasn't happy.
Yes, I agree. And it's not only how much he wants to come back on, because the players we're always going to come back on, no matter how concussed they are.
Yeah.
But it's also, even if he passes the test, if you can see how badly he was, you've got to think, well, because those tests aren't 100%. You know, it's a field of medicine that's not that well known yet. And there's got to be some, you know, you've got to go with how you feel as well on top. So and you've always got to go. There's only one way you can go, which is a safer way. So if he passes, if he doesn't pass, but you think he's fine, you keep him off. And if he passes, but you think he's not fine, you keep him off. So basically, unless you think he's fine and he passes, he shouldn't be on the pitch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and it frustrates me because I just think if someone's out cold, they don't go back on a rugby pitch. That I think is just my basic rule, because if they pass the HIA, then that's fine. That means that maybe they won't have been affected and their long-term health might not be as bad as possibly could be.
Yeah, but, because that's kind of the worst case. If you take him off, worst case scenario, he didn't have anything.
Yeah.
But you why go for any other scenario?
I just it was a worry to me, and it happened to Reed as well. Reed was cold.
Absolutely. I don't know if he was out cold, but he definitely should have at least gone off.
It was a massive knock. Yeah.
He should have been off, and it was just ridiculous.
And I think it kind of got not blazed over or ignored, because we're talking about it and it is known, but I just think people are kind of, he passed the HIA, that's okay then.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that in 10 years' time, are we going to look back at this and go, that was the most stupidest things that we've ever done? We're deciding that a basic test like that was enough, yeah. And it's a worry. There's still lots of people going, the HIA is enough. Okay,
yeah,
that's it.
And if you look at the press conference at the end, Warburton is asked about what he said to the referee, and he says, "I don't remember." And it could be that he never got a knock on the head and he was perfectly fine and still doesn't remember because he's knackered. But it is still a sign that there's potentially something wrong because he didn't quite remember what he said to the referee at the end of the game what everyone in the end thought was the most crucial point of the game.
Well, yeah. Not only that, I mean, I'm hoping against hope that he just said, I can't remember because he didn't want to tell the press or the world what he said to the ref. But
we can hear what he said to the ref.
Oh, I suppose we can on the ref mic and lip reading and whatever. But I'm hoping that that's the reason, but it's most likely not the reason that he can't remember.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I just got this idea today. Like, what if there was that would be kind of very different from the rules that are already in rugby. But imagine that the independent doctors. We must also remember that the doctors are independent, so I'm not putting any sort of blame on the Lions management or doctors or any of the doctors on that thing. I think no, I am, but I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying there was any intent of cheating in there for either side.
Yeah, it's not a bias. Shall we say? There's no bias involved. But I've now read what you were going to say. Go for it.
Yeah, and it's so imagine you don't allow Warburton or Alan Wynne-Jones to come back on. So Laws is already on, and for Alan Wynne. So that's fine, but Stander is already on for Sean O'Brien because he's injured. What do you do? So you can play Noel in the back row. Imagine Noel's gone on for another. Imagine Noel's gone on for Sexton, also HIA. Then you can't put a player on. So either you put a front row in the back row, which is probably doable. You could play Mako at 6 or 10. But what if you, for some ridiculous amount of injury, you have no one to put on except a player who took a knock on the head? Can you have rules where you force the opposition to take a player off?
I think for me, firstly, I think that will never happen. There won't be a period of time where World Rugby will say, okay, the opposition have to take a player off, pick a player.
No, I don't think it'll happen, but maybe you should.
But I think the better solution, and this is again just come to my head now, would be to increase the subs bench, or maybe have X-delegated slots where people are there and able to come on for concussion injuries.
Oh, like but the problem with all of these solutions, and that's the thing, even including the one I mentioned, is that it brings new ways of possibly cheating. Not looking at Slimani.
But that's why you would have to have the independent doctor making the call that this person has legitimately been head knocked, and I think it would only come if a head knock happened. It's still a
human being. The doctor's a human being, so we forget that. It's kind of like the TMO. We forget that the TMO is human and he can make mistakes as well.
Yeah, I think it's. I just think that there should be slots maybe on the subs bench, say 2 slots on top of, with 2 utility players, one in the forwards, one in the backs, and maybe when the guy obviously has got a head knock, then you reshuffle the team and you sort it out and you make sure that player has come off, they're able to come off without there being a significant detriment to the team, and their team can continue to play. That's the ideal solution to solving head knocks, for the team anyway, from a competitive standpoint.
From a competitive standpoint, it is if you've got them, but I think it probably opens other possibilities of HIA bringing a 24th and 25th player into the game. So I think the right decision, and it's the right decision for the team, is to man up and say, well, we'll play with 14. And it's very unlikely to happen.
they're never going to want to do that. I wonder if a player already subbed off would be allowed to come on. So, for example, you get a head knock at the 60th minute, you've already taken a prop off. Would it be allowed to bring him back on?
Just like for the front row.
Yeah.
Yes. Then I would. I think that should be in the rules, and it probably is. So the thing is, that's not. This part is. I don't think is in the laws. It's got to be in the rules of the competition.
Yeah. Okay.
That because if you when you play amateur rugby, you have a set number of interchanges, and you've got modalities for the interchanges, like front row. Was it tactical? Was it medical?
Yeah.
Was it HIA, etc.? The rules change from a competition to another, so that's probably somewhere in the rules or bylaws of the different competitions.
Mm-hmm.
So sure. I wouldn't be too worried about that. They've probably
integrated that into certain things.
Because in that solution, so in the scenario we were talking about, imagine Jack Knowles on for Sexton, head injury. Yeah. Laws is on for Alan Wynne-Jones, head injury, and Stander is on for O'Brien, shoulder. So you've got no one to go on for Warburton, then Mako goes on.
Yeah, Mako comes back on and goes on at 6 or something.
Who was the replacement hooker? Ken Owens goes on, or George... Jamie George comes back on.
One of the front row. Yeah, the rotation happens, and that's an easy solve.
Yeah. I know it's shit. I know you don't want to play with 4 front rows, but if you've got it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, come on, I think we are very focused on player welfare at this point. Plenty of people. I wouldn't say they're not interested in player welfare, but they're far more competitive, and I think competitiveness takes over quite a lot of the time. And they're more like, oh, this didn't happen back in XYZ, and no, it didn't. But now we're looking at these older guys who perhaps have more significant issues with their mind and everything, and we want to avoid that if possible. Also, everyone's getting bigger, so the hits are getting bigger and more dangerous, and it's not quite the same. We'll move away from the concussion. And we'll move to that last penalty / scrum.
Yeah. So do you want to have a look at the Test 2 final decision first? So the call to give a penalty to the Lions for a tackle in the air.
Oh, Sinclair. We chatted about that on the last podcast a bit. And I came to the conclusion that I was quite happy it was a penalty. Yes, the tackler didn't really have a choice. He was committed, but in the same respect, Sinclair didn't jump to get a penalty. He jumped to catch the ball and was tackled in the air as a result.
I think it's simpler than people made it out to be. So the main thing that you need to understand to look at this penalty is the difference between having the ball and jumping to get the ball, and that's the entire difference is in there. So when you're jumping to get the ball from a kick, you're jumping to get the ball. You don't have the ball and then jump, and it does happen with passes as well. It's called a line out.
yeah. So and you're not allowed to be playing in the air, are you?
Exactly. So you jump to get the ball. If you jump for a line out, went back down and jumped again with the ball, you would get penalised.
Yeah, because you can't jump. Well, it's just dangerous play. You're not allowed to jump and then be tackled.
Exactly.
It's you're putting as much danger to everybody else, so you're at fault, and the ref's allowed to interpret who's at fault in that situation. So yeah, it is far simpler than everybody was giving it credit, and I think I tried to explain that last podcast. I don't know if that came across.
And so the other thing you said, which is interesting, is about Farmerino. So first of all, of course, he's going to be gutted with the decision, and he was quite unlucky because the situation rarely happens. So you can't really put blame on the player. But he did give a penalty, and you said he was committed to the tackle. The problem is that he is committed to making a tackle before the opposition player has the ball.
Yes.
So if you're going to do that, you've got a much better chance of crushing the player, but you've also got a much bigger chance of giving away a penalty. Imagine the pass doesn't go to hand, tackle off the ball. The pass goes behind him to another player, tackle off the ball. He jumps to get the ball, tackle in the air. So you've got to be very careful with this, and it's fine margins. And even if you're Fan Marino and you're 150 kgs, if you see Carl Sinclair running full pace, I can understand bracing yourself early on.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of people that were like, well, he had to make that tackle.
A vagrant.
Oh, he can't just stand aside. For some reason, my Google.
Yeah, ask
my
Google.
Google. Yeah, my Ask Google just decided to pop up. For
Google,
a second
what
there.
do you think of it? Do you think it was a penalty?
Yeah. So he didn't need to stand aside and let Sinclair through. I don't think anyone's suggesting that, but in the same respect, he didn't need to do that exact thing to make that hit, which was to try and dominate the contact, I suppose.
He was doing his job. He just gave an unlucky penalty, I think.
We'll look at that last decision then in the third test, because I think that's the big one. That's the one that's been talked about so much.
And it's a much more difficult one to say whether or not the ref was right. And before I give what I think is the answer, whether it's right or not, but I'm a lot less sure. The other one I can say 100% the decision was right. This one is much more difficult.
Okay.
So the first thing you must look at is, so it was a kickoff and Liam Williams jumps, and he jumps with help, kind of like a line out, which is common on kickoffs.
Yeah.
And he's quite high in the air, and Reed comes in and disrupts him, genuinely trying to get the ball. You can argue penalty against Kieran Reid, and I think that's what a few commentators have said, but it's kind of a cop-out to say, well, the offside situation shouldn't have existed anyway because there was a penalty for Lions, and there was probably an easier way out for the referee and TMO as well. But they didn't go for it because they felt like Reid genuinely went for the ball and was competing, and I think that's fair. I think he was competing.
Yeah, 100%. I think he was jumping to compete. He wasn't jumping to disrupt. I think he was going for the ball.
And he did disrupt. I mean, I don't think Liam Williams would have dropped it without Reid jumping for the ball, but I think it was a genuine attempt, and I wouldn't penalise that. The other one is the law. So you know the law. If it's an offside, penalty. If the player cannot do anything to not be in contact with the ball, then it's a scrum for accidental offside.
Well, there's two laws that everybody is flip-flopping between which one's the one you pick. So there's 11.6, which says accidental offside. If it's intentional, it's a penalty. If it's not intentional, it's a scrum. And then there's 11.7 that says if you knock the ball on and your player gets hold of the ball or touches the ball, then it's just a penalty.
So I don't think those two contradict each other.
Oh, they do, because if Liam Williams knocks the ball on and then Ken Owens accidentally is offside and it hits him, do you go with a scrum or a penalty? Now that's down to how the ref has interpreted that call. Now if Liam Williams had kicked the ball and it had accidentally hit Owens, then it's a scrum. There's no doubt about it. So I think there is two, and this is obviously a very rare case where the ref has so much autonomy over three choices. Two of which are the same, which is a penalty, and Barrett gets a chance at kicking at posts. Personally, I'm happy with that. Went for the scrum. I think his interpretation is there. He's fine for it, but I can understand why other people are looking at.
So on the first thing you said, so if you think that because the law 11.7, I think you said, says when it's a knock on, then it's a penalty. I don't think it means. It means, oh, by the way, the previous rule doesn't apply to knock on. I don't think that's what it means.
But the previous rule 11.6 doesn't specify anything.
It's just for all. So for me, 11.6 means for all offsides, and then 11.7 explains that a knock on taken in front is also an offside. I think that's what it is. But then I could be wrong. It could be oh, by the way, if it's a knock on, then it's always offside. But I don't think that's it.
The specific wording of 7 talks about the knock on, and it talks about a sanction if playing the ball prevented an opponent from gaining an advantage. Now,
yes,
Ken Owens he hit him, and because he's a professional rugby player, hands are out. He's automatically caught it. He's then dropped it basically within a millisecond.
How many hands does he put on the ball?
I think 2. I mean, I'd have to rewatch it.
1.
He only puts 1 on the ball.
Only the left hand. So the ball comes off Liam Williams, lands on his shoulder. So his arm is out in front of him, but the ball lands on his shoulder. So unless he moves out of the way, he gets hit by the ball, regardless of whether or not he catches it.
So from that, I would interpret it to be 11.6a, which is offside and therefore a scrum. Accidental offside and therefore a scrum.
That's exactly my reasoning.
Okay.
So
because that's an unintentional...
He does catch it, but I think if he doesn't move, if he doesn't put his hand towards his chest, he still hits the ball just by being there. And he is retreating as well. So he is moving towards an onside position. So he can't even consider it to be a lazy runner or to be someone that's impeding with the game, because he is doing what he is meant to do, which is running towards his own try line. So yeah, the other interpretation for 11.6 is if the receiver is considered to be intentionally offside. So a lazy runner blocking the 9-10 channel, that sort of thing. Or that would be a penalty sanction. Or if the ball comes a little bit further away from his body, literally half a yard further in front of him, then his arm out catches the ball and not his chest, and that makes a huge difference, because that means he could have not touched the ball, and in that case it's a penalty. Avoided it.
Yeah, and the fact that I would need to watch it in slow mo to see it hit him on the shoulder, because I personally didn't see that.
Yeah. And so what I did to try and simulate non-bias, and I did say simulate, is that I made a little chart with my logic before I rewatched the action.
Okay.
So I wrote down if he puts his arm out, if he doesn't put his arm out, and then I watched the video, and I thought I was going to watch it for 5 minutes, but it took me a second to see that it hit straight into his shoulder/chest.
Okay.
And not his hands.
I might use your podcast prep sheet as the background for the YouTube video. Just to see where we got all our talking points from.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Every time it cuts off, I just shut up so you can finish whatever you say.
Stay silent. So I'm happy. Obviously, I'm happy with the call. You're French, so you have less of a Lions bias. Obviously,
I'm pro Lions.
Okay.
So there is bias, but it's not like I mean, whenever England play, I'll be the loudest person cheering for whoever they play in the pub. So if that helps.
It kind of helps, but then the implication that that's not true of Wales and Ireland and Scotland is probably not as useful. So I mean that's the decision. There's also the Reed potentially offside issue that got thrown around.
Oh yeah.
But he wasn't offside, so whatever.
But again, whether or not he's offside, I don't think is relevant, because if it's not seen, it's not seen, so it doesn't change the decision.
Yeah.
It's been missed. Loads of things are missed. I mean, you talked a little bit about this with Ed about the the Vunipola clear out in Test 2.
Uh-huh.
I think that the decision was fair on this one. It could even have been red, but the point there is that there's loads of similar things that we missed. And if you go over every single thing that's missed, you're not really watching rugby, are you?
No, it does. It would get a little bit ridiculous, and that was the original argument to not using a TMO.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the whole use of the TMO is also another debate. I think that there's quite a few things that went right and wrong with Garces's decision. But overall, if we can agree, and it's a difficult one, that it was actually the right decision, then the way that it came doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true, and there's quite a lot of people saying that the TMO shouldn't have even been used because it was a scrum and not a penalty or something.
And no, because it wasn't foul play.
Oh yeah,
that's the reason. So, but the thing is, that is protocol, and that is not law. So again, it's okay for him to use it. So it's a lot of.
He went to assess
a lot of fine
what
lines.
He thought was foul play, and came back with something else.
That's a lot of fine lines, and I remember now. Do you know the comedian Andy Zaltzman? I think I probably have mentioned this on one of the podcasts.
I think you've mentioned it before, and I have not listened to him or caught up with him in any way.
In 2013, in his news, he said that the Lions tour to Australia was disgusting because the match ended in a team winning at rugby and not a silly decision from a ref changing everything. So all the rugby fans were gutted.
Yeah.
So in the end, if it ends on controversial referee decision and very insanely fine margins, then it's proper modern rugby, and we're happy.
Well, not only that, it was a draw, so I mean, everyone can be disappointed and everyone can be happy at the same time.
Yeah.
Should we move on to Hansen's coaching ability, and then we can wrap up?
Yes, I think there's two things I want to talk about. So the main thing is, so we're talking about those marginal things and problems and mistakes, and what Hansen has said in his press conference is that basically they will look at what they could have, what was in their control in the game. So there's no point looking at little mistakes or little things happening one way or the other with refereeing or with what the Lions did. They will look at what they could have done differently, how they could have defended differently, how they could have made better decisions in attack, defence, tactical, positional, how they could have, whatever they could have done, that's what they're going to look at. What they don't have control over, there is no point looking at. And it's so simple, but it gets rid of 90% of the talk around the game.
It simplifies match day a little bit. Because you can get hung up on how the opposition are going to set up and perhaps how you're going to outthink your opposite number. And certainly when I watched, there was a clip of Andrew Sheridan and someone else knocking heads before a Lions game.
Mm-hmm.
And they were shouting, beat your opposite number, beat your opposite number. I was thinking to myself, you can get into a zone where you just want to beat one person on the opposite team, and it will take away from the actual teamwork that you need to do. Now, I'm not saying that those players would have done that, but you can get a bit of tunnel vision in that respect.
That's interesting, but I think that one is more about scrummaging and aggression than anything else.
Well, I think it was quite a lot of the back row players like spurring them on, like they were whacking heads and they were being overly aggressive towards each other, and some of the back row forwards were like egging them on, saying beat your opposite number or something. So yeah, maybe that was just purely scrum based, but I just think a lot of emphasis gets put on that, and rather than perhaps the team cohesion,
make sure that your team cohesion is working. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Also, when you're the loose head, you barely ever come against your opposite man.
Yeah, that's true as well. Obviously, the tight head's going to be your that's how you're going to envisage it.
So on the things we can control, I think it's really interesting. So imagine that the referee gives the penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Barrett slots it. they win 18-15. They will come out of this game saying, we won because the Lions made an insanely small mistake that we didn't make. And that was the difference between the two teams. Yeah. So you can say in that sense, the All Blacks are the better team. So you can say, well, we've been the better team because we've not made that mistake and they've done it. So or whatever we've done, they've made a mistake that makes us the better team. Really? Is that enough?
There's the fine margins that go on. And also, wow, I mean, it gets brought up a lot, but then if Gatland loses the test series based on that one mistake, is he suddenly any worse of a coach? Has it made any of his decisions any worse throughout the year?
Absolutely not. So
these fine margins, when it gets to that level of competitiveness and that level of competition, you know, the at some point there is a bit of a roll of the dice that's involved, which people assure me that is removed from the game. In fact, I've had this conversation, and I'm almost disproving my own point, but there's still a reasonable amount of luck involved.
Oh, there's a massive amount of luck, but why there is a massive amount of luck, yet the All Blacks consistently win. So their talent and their preparation and I think their honesty with themselves, saying, well, we're going to look at what we can do, makes them so much better, makes luck less important in the game.
I think, and it might be a cultural thing that I'm just picking up on, but New Zealand and Australia, when you think of them as people, you think of them as brutally honest. Well, certainly Australia, you think of them as brutally honest. They say what they think, and they're not ashamed to perhaps do what they think is right constantly. Whereas the British are more reserved. Certainly the English and the Welsh, they're more reserved. Not necessarily as forthright about everything. There's certainly an idea of keeping the peace rather than saying your piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that perhaps in competitive sport all the way through, I'm not saying it's a problem at the top level, because there's probably plenty of players that will say what they think at the top level, but certainly as a culture we're not necessarily the most let's just say that was absolutely awful, lads, let's change this and go back out there and sort it. It probably happens, but it's less of a cultural thing. It's not a natural thing for a Englishman or a Welshman to do.
Yeah, could be. And on the another slightly different point on the coaching and on what's in your control. And I was listening to the 42.ie rugby show with Murray Kinsella, because he's the best.
You were listening to another show? That just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I only listened to about 6 or 7 rugby podcasts. All of them except Egg Chasers, because they suck.
Alright, go on.
Shots fired. So this guy asked on the website for them, what could have, I'm paraphrasing, what could have the Lions done better or differently in the last test to possibly win it? And then he mentioned, maybe one solution would have had to have Ian Henderson on the bench for his potential impact. And I thought, well, the idea of having Henderson is in no way a bad idea, but it's in no way an answer to the question he's asked.
That's not, that's
because what could they have done is not change selection. Change selection is not what you can do. What you can do is how you play, what decisions you make, how you
set up your team. Maybe
exactly.
Not kick as many bombs. To do with maybe selection. Keep the ball in hand. Genuine tactical decisions.
Exactly, and decision making. It's not about and there's a misconception that at halftime and during and at training the coach is meant to tell you what to do, and I think Eddie Jones is quite vocal about the fact that he doesn't tell the players what to do.
Well,
he's not the only coach to do that.
I watched his Q&A at Oxford.
Yeah, I watched that as well.
Yeah. And I mean, he straight up says, I want to kind of make my role redundant.
Yeah.
I want the players to be able to fix the problems as it happens on the pitch. And somebody quite funnily brings up Italy and goes, "What happened here? It went wrong, didn't it?"
Yeah, and then he lied through his teeth.
Yeah, then he defended his players and lied basically and said no, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
It didn't quite execute it very well.
That was complete bollocks.
That was the first time I've seen Eddie Jones really, really obviously obscuring what happened, because obviously the team were a complete C for the first half of that game against Italy.
Completely agree. I love what he does, but on that one they got wrecked. They had no idea what to do, and it's at this point it's not his fault.
Well, he set the team up to be able to adapt.
The players again. He'd already done it after the game, saying, "Oh, they didn't come to play rugby." I don't think he believed that for a second. I think he did that to put pressure off them.
He not only did he say that they didn't come to play rugby, but he kind of tried to soften the blow by saying, "Oh, we thought about doing this when I was coaching Japan."
Yeah.
And we decided not to, as if he could take the moral high ground against O'Shea on this. And I was also myself,
bullshit, yeah.
It's interesting watching this interaction, because he obviously is giving himself that level of respect, but he's trying to take it away from O'Shea. And O'Shea outthought England for the first half of that game. But he's just not even acknowledging that was a legitimate tactic. He's just said, "Oh, it wasn't rugby. I'm going to."
And I'm sure he does think it's a legitimate tactic.
But he's not portraying that, you know.
Yeah, I think he is. And that's conjecture, of course. Can't be sure, but I genuinely think he is lying in this situation.
Yeah, allegedly lying. I think.
Yeah.
How do we get sued? We can't get sued, can we?
Sued for what? Sued for what? The 7p we've made out of this website.
Yeah, I think we're a negative because it costs a pretty pennies of rent.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Basically, and that's what New Zealand have done so well is giving control and decisions to the players, and they're not the only ones doing it. Every high level coach knows that, and they know so much more than people think. It's incredible how many people think, "Oh, well, the coach gives them a tactic, he tells them what to do, and they have to execute." And that's bullshit. Yeah. That's true at under 12s when your coach is shit.
Yeah, it's
rugby is not about. It's not about having. It's quite interesting. In that's also in coaching podcast. I've heard a coach explain that if I ever, and he said that if he ever comes out of a game saying, "Well, we practiced this, but we didn't execute," he is saying, "I'm a shit coach." If you say that, you're saying you're a shit coach, because it means that either you didn't practice properly, or you didn't communicate it properly to your players, or it wasn't the right idea. But saying that you had the right idea but that didn't do it is not good enough.
Well, I've had what you would probably define as a shit coach. It was a couple of seasons ago now, but essentially what they were saying is we should play this style of rugby every game. And the problem was that we played against a team that were obviously not as good as us. Every single time one of our players would break the tackle and then offload, and then a couple of phases later we'd score, and that was every single time. The problem was the tactic he wanted us to play was basically 2 phases, pass it wide, try and score off that phase. And that's just not the rugby you should be playing, but it's the coach that wants that rubbish style of rugby to be played. And it's just, it's a really, really frustrating thing when coaches think that a set, rigid system is the only way in which a team can play, and especially every single game. I mean, there has to be a system you play, and it's useful to have it, but systems have to be fluid in some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever level you play at, and I play at a very shit level, just have a look at the tactic that your coaches have put in place, if there is one, in terms of what we call structure, and check, does your structure is your structure, and it's the same for lineouts. It's really interesting for lineouts. Do you base your lineout calls on a system you've invented, or what's in front of you? And of course there is a system you invent in a way, but you can adapt it and change it depending on the opposition's reaction.
Yeah,
So
not only that, if you're at that
and it's
shit
the
level,
same for your structure. So a very basic structure is to have calls for the ball from 9 to forward. There's usually 2 or 3 different kinds of ball that you're going to get from the 9, and then the 2 or 3 different kinds of balls that the forwards are going to get from the 10.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 4 or 5 calls like this, let's say 4, so 9 close to the ruck, 9 away from the ruck, from the 10 inside, from the 10 outside, 4 calls. In what way is that structure depending on what's in front of you? It isn't.
Yeah, it's too rigid. Yeah,
it isn't. So you arbitrarily have 4 calls, and maybe if you have a really good 10 or really good 9, they choose depending on what they see. Or you can have very different kinds of structures where it depends on the speed, on the position on the pitch, on who you've got there. There's many things that can be very simple from choosing to go to get tackled or to go to avoid. There's so many different structures.
I'm gonna come. My favourite thing when I was I'd say at the age of 16 was peak of rugby. My rugby so far career, maybe not. I mean, I've won a lot of stuff since then, but 16 was when I felt like I was at my peak. There was a period of time where we were coached to almost have absolute freedom in the backs, to the point where wingers, yes, defensively you needed to get back on your wing, but in attack they could roam and do whatever they wanted. And there was a point where if there was a scrum anywhere near the centre of the pitch, we would all line up in a straight line backwards behind the scrum.
I love that one.
But that was the cool. And then, but it was every single time. It was kind of the coach was like, "Look, you guys are the quickest boys on this team, and we know you're quicker than the opposition. Make them create the overlap." So we would all stand behind the scrum, and then the 10 would just call it at the last minute, and we'd all absolutely go hell for leather. And often we'd score because we were rapid, and it would be 5 against 2 because one side of the scrum would just not have enough defenders. And that, I think, was really the peak of fluid backline for me. And that was probably the best team that I've played in, certainly as a cohesive unit, because we'd played together since we were 4, all the way up till 18, and we were a really, really good team. We won a national competition at one point, but it was that fluidity in the backs that was fun. It also made the game really fun.
There we go. That's the question I was going to ask. I was like, how much fun was that?
It was ridiculous, and we were laughing because you look at the opposition and they don't have a clue what's happening. Nobody really defends what was basically a bucket load of backs just standing behind the scrum. Nobody has really defended that, you know.
Yeah. And so what do you remember? What do you remember more, winning the game or doing that shit?
I remember that.
Exactly.
I remember stuff like that.
That shows you why so many things are going wrong in amateur rugby, where you're parent of an 11-year-old and you say, "Oh, did you win?" Like, kid forgets after 20 minutes whether he's won or not.
Yeah.
Ask him if he's scored a try or if there was something fun happening, or if they pulled off a ridiculous move, or if somebody had a ridiculous inspiration, or anything.
I do remember a lot more of I do remember more random moments as to whether I beat a team or not. That much is definitely true. I remember more. I remember the big victories, like the really end of year. You know, you win a cup, you win XYZ,
and a final whistle kind of wins.
That sort of stuff. But I do remember more big moments of a game. So make a break, make a pass, make a cool little move. Yeah, stuff like that. It's more fun. That's the interesting bit.
Of course, yeah.
We actually need to wrap up. I'm having a so this has been Linebreak. I mean, the sudden end to all this fun conversation at the end here. If you made it this far, it's a miracle, to be honest with you. I've been Sav. He's been Fred.
Yeah, I've been Fred.
And I'm trying to think of a nice way to sum it up. It's been a really good tour.
Yeah, I want to say something to sum it up. Is basically, if you want to comment on the referee decisions and on the overview of the tour or on the controversies that surround the concussion and player welfare, please feel free to do so. But if you want to be interesting in the conversation, talk about having fun playing rugby and what you liked playing rugby, and generally coaching and making your own decisions, etc. I think that's a much more interesting debate than the one we had for 90% of the pod. Guilty.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do another pod on coaching. We've talked about that for quite a while, haven't we? Anyway, it's been Linebreak. It's been fun. I'm gonna stop my recording.
And I'm not going to sync.
Oh, do we want to resync at the end?
If you want.
Just in case.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, sync.